Here's one entitled Acupuncture Cuts Heroin Cravings and Anxiety, New Research. Now, of course, you can go to the HealthCMI website at healthcmi.com and just click in the search bar and type in something like addiction or heroin or cravings, anxiety, things like that, and a list of topics will come up. I've also provided some links at the bottom of the page here in the research links section. Depending on the browser you're using, those are hot links that you can use during the webinar to look at it. If it doesn't show up, look in the notes section on the side for the links, or simply email directly to info@healthcmi.com and we can send you several links, anything that's covered here that you weren't able to access or document during the webinar. Or again, going to the healthcmi.com site and just using the search bar. But always the Acu News section, the news department, will have many, many topics, really mostly research. There are some politics that come up with different laws and rules that affect acupuncturists, new regulations, things like this. But we primarily focus on research, and on the back end we do grant work also into promoting research and helping traditional Chinese medicine find its way in the United States and around the world with improved research to help cement us in the community. So here's one, Acupuncture Cuts Heroin Cravings and Anxiety. And I'll read it briefly. We'll talk about it a little bit. New research concludes that acupuncture reduces anxiety and cravings in heroin addicts. Another recent investigation may help to explain these findings. Researchers discovered that, quote, different frequencies of electroacupuncture appeared to activate different endogenous opioid mechanisms, unquote. The combined investigations bolster evidence across many studies demonstrating that acupuncture is an effective tool for assisting addiction recovery. Now, I want to comment on this opening paragraph of this research, that there has been a tremendous amount of research into the mechanisms of acupuncture, how it functions. So from the very start of when the needle is entering the body to what happens in the local nerve fibers, tissues, all the way to signals in the brain and then stimulating systems back down to the body. The research that's come out in the last few years is unbelievable. However, I will say that, for example, in the United States, the federal government has not recognized any recent research regarding acceptance of acupuncture into the Medicare system since probably several years prior to the release of this research. So I know for a fact that a major review was done of year 2000 and year 2004 research, and that stuff was rejected. As a result, acupuncture was not allowed into the Medicare system. The two main avenues to accept Chinese medicine, acupuncture, even herbal medicine, into the Medicare system in the United States would be one, an act of Congress, and two would be the federal government recognizing the research, and then through executive order. I don't think it's actually an executive order. It's through the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare. Would then, once that research was accepted, there is an executive mechanism for getting acupuncture into the system. So again, that's one reason why this new research is so vitally important. So looking at that opening paragraph about how acupuncture helps heroin addicts, it's just a comment on how acupuncture activates endogenous opioid mechanisms. And I will also comment that the very structure and existence of acupuncture points has also received a lot of research recently. And it's absolutely amazing that there are definitely structural anomalies, including special vessel structures and microvessel structures around acupuncture points that are unique to traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture points that are not found in non-acupuncture points. So the argument that, well, sham needling at non-acupuncture points is just as good, or some people say that this sounds absurd, that using a toothpick or whatever, or stimulating a point is just as good because the sham research is the same. It's actually not true. So much research has shown that acupuncture, true acupuncture, is much more effective than sham studies. And another thing is that true acupuncture, in some cases, did have the same immediate responses as a placebo effect on a sham point. However, long-term results were achieved with true acupuncture, but long-term results did not occur from the placebo effect. And there it is. That's the effective mechanism that acupuncture achieves a pain relief or helps with addiction recovery through a very specific biological mechanism. The placebo effect doesn't engage that mechanism, so it may be temporary. So moving on. The study demonstrating acupuncture's ability to reduce both anxiety and cravings in heroin addicts tested acupuncture points on the back. Many other studies have looked at arm acupuncture points, such as Tianwei, Timmi, large intestine 5, lung 7. Another set of studies investigated auricular acupuncture and discovered that it is highly effective in addiction recovery. This study, however, investigated the Jiaji points that we're talking, the first study we're referring to of the back. And the effectiveness of the Jiaji points were clinically measured against subjects in a control group that received methadone and doxepin. A group of 60 patients suffering from heroin addiction were randomly divided into two groups. So again, this is a Jiaji study. And I happen to love the Huatou Jiaji points of the back, located approximately a ½ inch to the left and right of the center of the spine. So here, the sample size here is 60 patients. Group A received acupuncture at Jiaji points, and Group B received methadone and doxepin. In an interesting finding, the acupuncture group had better clinical results than the medication group. I should mention also the references for every single one of these findings in the news site is at the bottom of each article, so you can look up the sources. Excuse me. So the sources are very important so that people can document this. This is how at Health CMI we've helped shape legislation, because we've been able to support different societies looking for different answers to different questions that have come up from legislatures. So they go find the research that's pertinent, and they can reference the specific source of the research. So getting back to this, here acupuncture outperformed the medication group. The researchers concluded electroacupuncture at Jiaji points, EX-B2, can effectively alleviate anxiety and craving intensity in heroin addicts during detoxification. So for me personally, that is a very powerful finding, in that the control was a medication group and acupuncture outperformed that. And there are many examples of acupuncture being integrated into a medication protocol so that it's an additional procedure. And those tend to work better, such as in the Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx in New York City. The other recent research study mentioned here measured the ability of electroacupuncture to regulate opioids within the body. It was a meta-analysis of 2,916 human studies and 3,344 animal studies. Now, a meta-analysis is a broad comparison of many different studies, so the sample sizes can be small and large. They add up. All of those sample sizes may be one study of 60 patients, another study of 200 patients, a study of 4 patients, a study of 1,000 patients. Added up, 2,916 human studies, 3,344 animal studies, and then in many cases we have research will add up the number of actual humans studied, and it can be in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. So of all of these studies, critics have argued that there have not been many studies on acupuncture, but this meta-analysis underscores the vast amount of research that has already been completed. I'll continue reading along for this particular study. The investigators note that, quote, acupuncture does release endogenous opioids, unquote. They note that the evidence is very strong regarding electroacupuncture, although there is also evidence demonstrating that manual acupuncture has this effect. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the study is that the variance in electroacupuncture frequencies of stimulation activate different opioid mechanisms within the human biological system. The studies into the effectiveness of acupuncture for addiction recovery have been peer-reviewed and accepted many times over. Just last year, researchers concluded that acupuncture is effective for the treatment of withdrawal symptoms and anxiety associated with heroin addiction. A control group was compared with two acupuncture treatment groups. Group A received acupuncture at acupuncture point Heart 7, Shen Men, and Group B received acupuncture at acupuncture point P6, Neiguan. The use of both points proved effective in the treatment of heroin addiction-related withdrawal symptoms. Acupuncture has also been measured for its effectiveness in the treatment of other forms of addiction, including alcoholism, cigarette smoking, and cocaine addiction. Although we have discussed clinical studies of humans, there has also been a great many laboratory studies. Researchers studying cocaine addiction in laboratory rats discovered that acupuncture needling at Heart 7, Shen Men, located on the arm, had a, quote, markedly reduced reinstatement of cocaine seeking, unquote. So here the laboratory animals did not seek cocaine after the acupuncture. The success rate was a surprising 86.5% inhibition rate. The drive to conduct acupuncture research into its effectiveness relating to addiction recovery was largely stimulated by a Yale University investigation over a decade ago. Researchers concluded that ear acupuncture, auricular acupuncture, was effective for the treatment of cocaine addiction. The results of the human subject controlled study demonstrated that the acupuncture group tested 54.8% free of cocaine, while the two control groups were 23.5% and 9.1% free of cocaine following treatment. Moreover, the acupuncture group demonstrated a lower recidivism rate. These encouraging successes were later verified by thousands of other investigations. So that's that one study. It's a lot there. And that was published in Acupuncture and Medicine in 2013. There's really quite a bit more on the topic of cocaine addiction, morphine addiction, and even looking deeply into other forms of addiction. So today we'll be covering also pain and how that relates to Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So let's take a look at another study, and I like this one here. Let's take a look at acupuncture cuts morphine addiction. Acupuncture suppresses morphine addiction patterns. Researchers have identified an acupuncture point that specifically reduces the behavioral pattern of self-administering morphine. The researchers made an additional discovery. The administration of a special pharmaceutical neurotransmitter blocking agent interfered with the effective action of acupuncture. As a result, the researchers determined that a special biochemical brain pathway is necessary to achieve optimal clinical results with acupuncture for the purposes of addiction control. Acupuncture is less effective when drugs are administered that interfere with the brain's ability to regulate GABA neurotransmitters. The investigators proved that acupuncture reduces morphine self-administration at both low and high doses. The laboratory experiment was designed to explore the possibilities of using acupuncture on human subjects that are dependent on morphine. The research was prompted by prior human clinical trials demonstrating that acupuncture reduces morphine addiction. The experiment involved trained animals that were self-administering morphine. The animals receiving acupuncture at acupoint Heart 7 showed significant reductions in morphine self-administration. At acupuncture point large intestine 5 did not achieve the results obtained by the use of Heart 7. Using several tests, the researchers determined that acupuncture at Heart 7 reduces morphine cravings and self-administration behavior. The researchers noted that the findings, quote, provide strong evidence that acupuncture at Heart 7 is a useful treatment for morphine abuse, unquote. So this study that we're going over now compared and contrasted two acupuncture points. There's a few flavors that research comes in. One is, let's prove acupuncture is good for something against a control group where they receive maybe a drug. Acupuncture is better against some type of biomedical procedure, physical therapy, some kind of standard care is usually the term used. So a classic set of acupuncture points, usually one prescription is used. Another flavor is to show that acupuncture is better than some biomedical procedure or increases or enhances some biomedical procedure by comparing the acupuncture points to a control group receiving biomedicine only, a group receiving acupuncture only, and then a group receiving biomedicine, Western medicine as it's called, plus acupuncture, and comparing the results and seeing if there's a synergistic effect where they enhance each other beyond the individual results of either acupuncture or biomedicine. And of course, that can also include Tui Na, Qigong, and herbal medicine. Another flavor that is used in research is, instead of using a standard set of points that was chosen by researchers, to do a differential diagnosis and then choosing selected points. Now, sometimes there'll be, 10 sets or 5 sets of acupuncture points. Well, if it's liver yin deficiency, we'll use these sets of points. And so it's a standard point, but broken up into a few differential diagnostic patterns. And that's another form of research. And then some of the research then compares, can we use a standard set of points against differential diagnosis and which performs better. All this research has been done, and it always comes up the way you would think. I wouldn't say always, but the overwhelming majority of the time shows that differential diagnostics tend to outperform just a standalone set of points that researchers chose. I will say that I have seen some examples of research that is not complementary of acupuncture. And we've published on this in Health CMI in our news department. It comes up from time to time. It's not unique. And very sad, where acupuncture didn't work. And I read the research. Well, were there acupuncturists actually performing the acupuncture? Whoops. No. A lot of this so-called anti-acupuncture stuff, there were no acupuncturists whatsoever involved in the study. Well, then I thought surely there was a physical therapist, a chiropractor, an MD who studied acupuncture intensely, and they helped design the study. No. And you'll get some random PhD who took 2 or 3 weeks of a course somewhere, sometimes in a school that no longer exists, chose the points, and then this stuff gets big press. They chose an incorrect set of acupuncture points and tested whether or not Chinese medicine would work for treating colitis, for treating pain, you name it. When you look behind the curtains, there's a big press machine out to disprove Chinese medicine. Probably one of the most glaring ones of all would be taking a look at wikipedia.com and looking at the acupuncture page. Most people don't know that there is a discussion page behind every page that you see. So if you look at the acupuncture page on Wikipedia, and then there's a tab you can click to see the discussions behind that page, because people are genuinely trying to sort out what should be there, what should not. So between every insertion or omission, there can be a discussion group about each line by line, or even a word that has been changed or a reference. In that discussion page, it will tell you that certain groups have whatever's changed on that page by a watch list. And if you look at the watch list on the acupuncture page, there are several what they call anti-quack groups, they call themselves, that are out basically to disprove acupuncture no matter what. And there are a few interested Chinese medicine groups. If you should ever try to post something that's positive towards acupuncture on that site, be ready for an onslaught of highly prepared individuals to shoot you down and remove everything. And we have to be clear that there are people who are trying to repress Chinese medicine, acupuncture, herbs, many things, and around the world globally in the United States. This is very uncompassionate. Sometimes we could say it's monetarily motivated. It might be ideological. And what I want to say now is that the research is just simply there. And this has been done by the world's most prestigious doctors at the most prestigious universities over and over again. Our authors are around the world at Health CMI for our new site. We read this research, it pours in like a giant waterfall. Not all the research is great. Some of it is very thin. Some of it is fantastic. It's just there. From the biological mechanisms of how true acupuncture works versus sham acupuncture to specifically what we can achieve. And even the cost effectiveness. And that's another type of research that gets covered. Is acupuncture cost effective? Can it be integrated into a busy hospital setting? We've had research like that. Well, if we take the time to do differential diagnostics and apply acupuncture, does that really work in a busy emergency room? Does that really work in the modern setting? Can it be paid through insurances? How does this work? And those studies have been done over again. If there wasn't so much of it, I would point to one study and say, wow, look at this study. How could they do this to us? It's just that as I'm speaking, there might be a couple authors that Health CMI has hired that are already working on it, that have come up with new stuff. Yes, acupuncture integrates into the hospital setting, into clinical settings very well, and that is a good thing. There's also the danger that it will not be performed by acupuncturists. I mean, there are definitely political moves around the United States and around the world to allow, for example, a physical therapist with 2 weekends of training to perform acupuncture and call it acupuncture. The bar is very low for MDs right now also in acupuncture. There are, but that's not to discount that many MDs have worked very hard to become experts in the topic and have actually been responsible for helping to bring Chinese medicine to the United States. So there's a few aspects on the different flavors of research and some of the concerns about it. If Chinese medicine is going to have a chance in the United States, it eventually will need to be part of the Medicare system. Whether or not that's good or bad for the acupuncturist and their income is another story. I certainly know a lot of acupuncturists who really don't like to deal with insurance at all. But the research itself and then acceptance into the Medicare system, it's kind of a good housekeeping seal of approval, so to speak. So it's just saying, yes, you're real, yes, you're good. And that's how acupuncture will be accepted in the mainstream. I'll continue with this study a little bit. But hopefully you get an idea of the different types of research out there. The researchers conducted a second experiment to measure the biochemical pathways by which acupuncture attenuates morphine self-administration. A selective GABA receptor antagonist was intravenously injected into the animals prior to receiving acupuncture. GABA antagonists tend to have stimulant and convulsive properties and are often used to counteract sedative pharmaceutical overdoses. So GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter produced in the brain, and GABA induces relaxation, relieves stress. It benefits the production of lean body mass, assists in burning fat, plays a role in pain reduction, and helps to stabilize blood pressure. The GABA antagonist injections block the clinical efficacy of acupuncture at heart 7 for the purposes of attenuating morphine self-administration. So I'll dwell on that for a moment, that line. In other words, in the research, by preventing GABA from doing its work in the body with an injection of something to simply block it, heart 7 stops working the way it's supposed to. So we know that heart in Shen Men, located on the wrist, heart 7, is related to that pathway. And that's one way we can determine the biological mechanisms of acupuncture. A lot of other mechanisms are MRI pictures, literally imaging while people are getting acupuncture and seeing what happens in the brain, so you can see inside the brain while someone's having a needle. This is one way, by using agent blockers like this. So based on this, the researchers note that this data, quote, suggests that the suppressive effect of acupuncture at heart 7 on morphine self-administration was mediated through the GABA A and GABA B receptor system, unquote. So there it is. Heart 7 is mediated through the GABA receptor system. And the researchers added, quote, the acupuncture at heart 7 certainly has a strong suppressive effect on morphine self-administration behavior through the GABA pathway, unquote. And connecting all of this to Western medicine is important so doctors and researchers can understand it and help us getting accepted into the system. Let me continue reading a little bit. The researchers made some important observations. Acupuncture at heart 7 did not change food intake behavior in prior experiments, but selectively reduced morphine taking behavior in prior experiments and the current experiment. So there, that comment shows that heart 7 has that calm spirit function, perhaps in Chinese medicine, but it's not just suppressing the entire system. In this example, it was tested against food intake. The researchers concluded that acupuncture is, quote, worthy of being considered as a useful therapy for the treatment of morphine abuse, unquote. And this one was a South Korean Ministry of Education study. The study was produced both clinically related research and basic science. It goes on a little bit. Anyway, this gives you a little more insight into that type of research. Heart 7 got a lot of attention with a cocaine study too, and this one is entitled "Acupuncture Halts Cocaine Addiction: New Research." And again, if you go to HealthCMI and click in, the research in the search bar, cocaine, it'll come up, or addiction, or the links that we have provided. And here it states, new research investigated the ability of acupuncture to prevent the relapse of cocaine addiction. A study of cocaine-addicted lab rats discovered that those receiving acupuncture at Acupuncture Heart 7, Shenmen, had a, quote, markedly reduced reinstatement of cocaine seeking, unquote, with an 86.5% successful inhibition rate. The researchers note that, quote, acupuncture reduces drug self-administration and dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens, and I hope I'm getting all the pronunciations correct, the NAC, brain structure implicated in stress-induced reinstatement of drug-seeking behavior. So the NAC is an area of the brain important to motor function and rewards emotions. Dopamine, glucocorticoids, GABA, and serotonin play important roles in the NAC structure of the brain. Using foot shock stress to re-stimulate cocaine addiction behavior, the researchers applied acupuncture to acupuncture point heart 7 for 1 minute following foot shock stress to a control group and an acupuncture group. I should note, this is, again, like a point prescription. Sometimes the research will just be one acupuncture point. For the control group, foot shock stress reinstated cocaine addiction behaviors. In the acupuncture group, there was an 86.5% inhibition rate of cocaine addiction. So when they Lab rats were irritated back into addiction behavior with the foot shock stimulation. The acupuncture group had an 86.5% improvement, whereas the control group did not. So basically, if you take that into the world, if an addict has different types of physical stimulation or hopefully societal stimulation that is stressful, that the acupuncture would then help them resist going back into addictive behavior. This is what they're trying to show here. As a result of biochemical measurements taken during the study, the researchers note that the mechanism by which acupuncture prevents cocaine addiction relapse may be due to the ability of acupuncture to regulate, quote, neuronal activation in the NAC shell, unquote. That's part of the brain. And that study goes on for a little bit after that. Let's take a look at another one. New microscopy, acupuncture restores heroin addict brain cells. So another angle is restoration of bodily structures in research, how acupuncture helps the body heal. And this research first came out in March 7th of 2014. New immunohistochemical electron microscopy reveals that acupuncture protects brain cells in cases of heroin addiction. So we'll go on with this in just a moment. But I want to mention a couple of things. First of all, for my own take, I love clinical studies of, 1,000 humans, 2,000 human subjects, and how acupuncture helped them. Those are my favorites. But the laboratory research is sometimes more accepted in many situations and does become important in acceptance into the system. Although I can't say that I'm always thrilled with the treatment of animals in laboratory research on a personal level. I just, as a clinician myself, as an acupuncturist myself, really enjoy hearing about how humans have responded to care. Here we're looking at how acupuncture protects bodily structures, which is a little different than other types of investigations, and it's another subtlety. This type of research goes on forever as well, and how acupuncture prevents the destruction of bodily tissues, including parts of the brain. It's endless. And to say that there has been no research to date is an absurdity. And this is something that may have been true 10 years ago, but it's very recent. And why I bring this up? I know at Health CMI we've been working on an e-book specifically to distribute to acupuncturists so they can put it in their reception area. Why? Because that might not bring you new patients, but it will definitely help your existing patients when they see the research to follow through with care. One problem acupuncturists have is people want to do that whole 1 day a week for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks and expect a miracle. When we see case studies coming out of China saying, no, these people need 3, 4, 5 days a week of treatment for 10 weeks, 2, 3, 4, a very large commitment to care. By having something that patients can read, either a handout to give them directly, reading material in the reception area that is backed by scientific research, it cements that in the psyche of the patient that this works, that it's real, and that it's important. And here's the benefits. And it's been proven, and that it's accepted. If someone objects, they have a piece of paper in their hand or something they've read that says, no, it's working, here's why. So the research can actually help patients follow through with care, and I think that's very important because acupuncturists, I'll say it anyway, they're expected to perform miracles, and I was watching the great Xiao Hua Li treat someone for neck pain, And the patient got up off the table and said, "Oh, I still feel neck pain." She said, "Lie back down." And she said to the acupuncturists who were there in the clinical theater, "You know why? If patient comes in with neck pain and leaves with neck pain, they'll never come back." She was referring to a new patient. Sure enough, she did some more work on the patient and got rid of the neck pain. Uh, that's so true. There's a lot of pressure on acupuncturists to perform at extremely high levels above and beyond where maybe they should even be expected to. Well, providing the research to patients is one way to help mitigate that. So going to the acupuncture website at healthcmi.com, looking up the patient's specific addiction problem or pain problem or internal medicine problem, digestion issues, what have you, insomnia, printing it out and giving it to them, or providing that material in the front office. So you can link to it with a brief paragraph on your websites. Will help them understand how acupuncture works, and in doing so, allow them to commit to a greater length of care. This is essential. Acupuncturists need to get people better, but we need compliance from the patient. So let's look at this heroin addiction recovery article in detail. In a controlled laboratory experiments of heroin addiction-related brain damage, acupuncture restored nerve cells, endoplasmic reticulum, and mitochondria in the brain's hippocampus and frontal lobe. The research team noted that they produced evidence demonstrating that acupuncture can partially reverse the effects of heroin-related brain injuries. And if that's not important, what is, right? Helping reverse brain damage? Not too bad. This is not a standalone study. I've seen a lot of this type of research come out in many situations where people are declining, where acupuncture can not just slow down the degradation of brain damage, but reverse some parts of it. Re-addiction is the process in which addicts become addicted, withdraw, and detoxify, and then become addicted again in a repeated cycle. This may lead to extensive and sometimes irreversible damage to the brain by causing excessive apoptosis and nerve demyelinization. The researchers studied the effects of needling acupuncture points GV20 by Hui, 220, and GV14, 214, Dazoi, based on prior research demonstrating that this point combination, quote, reduces neuronal loss and attenuates ultrastructural damage in cerebral ischemic rats, unquote. The National Institute of Drug Abuse states that 4.2 million people in the USA have used heroin at least once. It is estimated that 23% of these individuals have become addicted, and the majority of heroin users are under the age of 26. Overdoses, unregulated purity and potency, and chronic pathological damage are common consequences of illicit heroin use. The researchers note that acupuncture produced several important beneficial effects. First, quote, the pathological damage in the hippocampus and frontal lobe was significantly reduced, unquote. In addition, acupuncture significantly upregulated BCL-2 and downregulated BAX expression. These two proteins are responsible for regulating cell preservation and cell death, respectively. Heroin addicts undergo a pathological decrease of BCL-2 and increase of BAX. Acupuncture effectively regulated BCL-2 and BAX in the study's heroin re-addiction rats. The researchers noted, quote, electron microscopy results showed that acupuncture can prevent brain cell apoptosis in heroin re-addicted rats, which is most likely mediated by altering cell ultrastructure, regulating the expression of apoptosis-related genes BCL-2 and BAX, and changing BCL-2 BAX, the BCL-2 BAX ratio, unquote. Also, the researchers discovered that, quote, acupuncture has the potential to maintain mitochondria and rough endoplasmic reticulum function, promote the transport of protein synthesized by membrane-bound ribosomes, and help to synthesize ATP, which are conductive to providing energy for a variety of physiological activities of cells and restoring the function of nerve nuclear groups in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, unquote. Well, that's a lot. So here they're basically measuring the structure of the brain, how it's healed, and what are the proteins or genes here involved in that process and how they're activated. So when we look at it under a microscope, we can literally see that the brain has benefited. And that's pretty hard evidence, I will say. And they get very detailed and specifically how that functions, what genes are involved, this type of thing. So let me continue reading a little bit. The goal of the study was to explore the neuroprotective effects of acupuncture on the brain. The researchers noted that, quote, our study has provided a partial mechanism for the neuroprotective effect of acupuncture on brain cell death in heroin addiction rats, and provides insights on the possibility of using acupuncture for the treatment of heroin re-addiction, unquote. And more references are made after that. So hopefully that was a little bit interesting and quite a lot going on with that one. And there's other research there that you can enjoy at healthcmi.com regarding addiction. I also encourage acupuncturists to submit research that they've done to HealthCMI for publication. We love that. Let's take a moment now to look at pain. Acupuncture MRI shows lasting pain relief. That's the title of the next study we'll look at on pain. Published at healthcmi.com, December 18th, 2014. Acupuncture induces lasting pain relief. Doctors using MRI neuroradiology scans captured images showing how acupuncture accomplishes enduring analgesia. The researchers state that the MRI images reveal that, quote, acupuncture and pain mobilize overlapping brain regions and the same intrinsic networks, unquote. They add that, quote, acupuncture consists of several specific brain activation modulating patterns that outlast the needling period, unquote. So the focus of this research was to show very simply that acupuncture continues its effects on the brain even after needling. And that was the background to this research. The researchers note that, quote, most acupuncture studies conclude that the acupuncture-induced decrease in pain perception consists of acupuncture-specific brain activations, unquote. The current study concurs with prior research findings, and in this investigation, the team of doctors tested pain relief in humans induced by manual needling of acupuncture points, large intestine 4, liver 3, and stomach 36. So here, classic points that can be used in acupuncture. The following paragraph I'll read indicates that we are gearing the general public for this article to be read by the general public. We give an explanatory, a little bit about what we meant by that. The Li4 and LV3 acupuncture point combination is a classic traditional Chinese medicine prescription for pain relief. Together, these acupuncture points are called Siguan, roughly translated as the 4 gates or 4 bars. They are a set of 4 acupuncture points located bilaterally on the hands and feet. Stomach 36, translated as leg 3 miles, and located on the lower leg, is also indicated for the TCM function of activating the channels and alleviating pain. So, research at HealthCMI is not only geared towards the licensed acupuncturists, but also towards researchers, educators, and the general public. Different articles will have a different slant. Some will be very much focusing on biomedical researchers and getting very detailed with no explanations. Others will be very easy, very simple for the general public. This one, a little bit in between. So let's continue. The researchers note that sham acupuncture and true acupuncture are different. They cite, quote, a recent individual meta-analysis based on data from 29 randomized clinical trials with a total of 17,922 patients reported clear differences between real acupuncture and sham acupuncture procedures for several chronic pain conditions, unquote. Published in the Archives of Internal Medicine, researchers conclude that acupuncture is effective for the treatment of chronic pain, including neck pain and back pain, shoulder pain, osteoarthritis, and headaches. Now that's a nice piece of information to put up on the reception area or hand a patient, that a sample size of 17,922 patients showed that acupuncture can treat all of those pain conditions. The new MRI findings demonstrate that the effective actions exerted by true acupuncture points are specific to certain brain networks. A great deal of research on the brain pathways and biochemical mechanisms relating to acupuncture treatments has been published within the last 2 years. One of the more intriguing studies demonstrates that a biochemical responsible for pain reduction is activated by acupuncture. So here we are switching over to discussing another piece of research. The analgesic biochemical is a chemokine called CXCL10. Acupuncture stimulates its expression, which in turn reduces pain and inflammation by activating natural opioids in the body. In general, chemokines attract white blood cells to sites of infection to assist in immune system responses. The chemokine CXCL10, when activated by electroacupuncture, triggers powerful anti-inflammatory responses. That's actually relatively recent finding, I should mention, and CXCL10 really narrows the field down to exactly the biochemical responses induced by electroacupuncture. Electroacupuncture was shown to stimulate several other important responses, including augmentation of interferon, IFN gamma, and mRNA expression, and increases in opioid peptide-containing macrophages. The researchers added that electroacupuncture, quote, elicited long-term anti-nociception, unquote, that is, reduced sensitivity to pain. The researchers found that CXCL10 regulates, quote, opioid-containing macrophages as a key regulator of acupuncture-induced anti-nociception, unquote. So, acupuncture in this study focuses on nociception, or pain through pain receptors, as opposed to something like fibromyalgia, which is not through pain receptors. So most of the pain in a clinic will be treated that is nociceptive pain, but there are many other types of pain that are not induced by stimulation of pain receptors. And there's a wide variety of examples of that at healthcmi.com, particularly on fibromyalgia. So let's continue with this study. The study measured that acupuncture, quote, suppressed selected pro and enhanced anti-inflammatory cytokines, and, quote, increased the production of cytokine IFN gamma and the chemokine CXCL10 at the site of inflammation, leading to an increase in opioid-containing CXCR3 positive macrophages, unquote. In addition, quote, macrophage-derived opioid peptides could activate opioid receptors on peripheral sensory neurons and suppress inflammatory pain. Taken together, we identified a new molecular pathway of acupuncture-induced analgesia, unquote. So for the skeptics saying we don't know if acupuncture works, we don't know how it works, it's some mythical thing, well, this is very specific. We know that electroacupuncture at specific points regulates CXCL10, and that in turn stimulates the production of opioid-related macrophages. It doesn't get more specific than that. And continuing with the article, prior to this research, it was known that acupuncture caused opioid peptide releases in the spinal cord, brain, and peripheral nervous system. The new research extends, quote, the findings by demonstrating that electroacupuncture stimulated the increased number of leukocytes, that is macrophages, containing the three opioid peptides END, ENK, and DYN, and that all three opioid peptides mediated antinociception to thermal and mechanical mechanical stimuli, unquote. And that's huge. People working on this study were from the Department of Diagnostic and Interventional Radiology and Neurology at the University Hospital of Essen in Essen, Germany. Others, including those from Austria at the University Clinic of Neuroradiology at the Medical University of Innsbruck, the Department of Neurosurgery, also at the University Hospital of Essen, from Norway, from the University of Tromsø, the science department, and on. So, look, also here in the USA, there's another author affiliation, National Research Center in Complementary Internal Medicine, Department of Community Medicine, and Faculty of Health. So at the bottom of all the articles, there'll be the references, and sometimes we'll put in the author affiliations in this case, which is at the bottom of this article entitled MRI shows lasting pain relief. Our acupuncture MRI shows lasting pain relief. And it really gives you a good feeling about the type of research that's coming out. I find it amazing. Look for articles on fibromyalgia. Look for articles on specific things like neck pain, great to give to your patients. Look for articles on how acupuncture helps children, how acupuncture eases alcohol cravings, how acupuncture treats migraines. The research is specific, it's direct, it compares it to sham, it compares it to brain responses, and it's just an incredible resource for communicating to patients, doctors, and other folks. Here's a brief, I'll try to get this one in, from Stanford University here, Palo Alto, California. And this study is Acupuncture Eases Pain for Children. Quote Stanford University, Stanford University from November 13th, 2014. And it says, a Stanford University study finds acupuncture safe and cost-effective for relieving pain in children. And the doctor doing the study notes that research confirming that acupuncture is, quote, useful in pain, chronic pain conditions, unquote, adding that it may be clinically valuable in an integrative medicine setting. So this goes on to demonstrate how acupuncture helps children specifically. It's critical that this type of research gets out. Again, Stanford University, heavy hitter in the research department. So when people say, well, the research isn't good, it doesn't come from good sources, they just have not seen the latest research. Things have changed dramatically. Now the question is, will acupuncture, Chinese medicine be integrated properly into the medical system? Will there be providers and enough of them to fulfill that need? Will they get reimbursed properly? Will they come up against the hassles facing the modern medicine system in terms of authorization of care, referrals, things like that? But the research itself is there to support it. I encourage everyone to really take advantage of the Health CMI AccuNews department. If you have research or want to point out research that we should look into or publish, please do. We're very open to that. Simply send an email to info@healthcmi.com and we'll take a look and maybe get one of the writers on it. Or if you'd like to write on the topic, we can also send you research and publish you in that and help really the profession and the world know the benefits of traditional Chinese medicine. At the Healthcare Medicine Institute, our vision is to provide a positive influence to the profession. We don't want to fight anyone, really. We want to simply put out the information, the truth as it is, get it out to the people, get it out to the patients so that people can use it in a better way. One other thing I like about the research is there's a lot of comparisons of different types of point prescriptions and seeing which one works better. And that's kind of fun for an acupuncturist. Well, let's try that one. It seems like, wow, that came up great. So I saw one recently on depression, and They tried out this set of points, that set of points, another set of points. I thought, well, that's something to think about. And they did the classic combination of lung 7 and kidney 6 and had really good results in that particular research. And I thought, well, I like that. And using that 8 extra channels approach, and they had remarkable results. And I said, well, let's add that in and see if we can get some nuanced approaches because it makes sense for my patients. So it's not just for others, but for ourselves as well. And I also personally enjoy the research. I think it's stimulating, it's interesting, it helps people. So let's take a moment to review some of what we've talked about today. The acupuncture research is basically stable, it's out there, and needs to be accepted into mainstream system. And secondly, for our own patients, we can use the research to help them continue with a longer course of care by having that data in their head. By giving them some handouts of some scientific research, it helps them follow through with a more complete course of care. And I want to thank everyone for attending today. We'll be having another webinar next month on research, and we'll be having a new topic. Every month we'll have a Tuesday webinar on acupuncture research until next year. And I will also want to wish everyone an upcoming happy Year of the Sheep.